So I've been collecting I've been making a sentence out of these snippets of communications I've had recently with some people. And this list, this long sentence that I made, is really, I've been hearing this same long sentence for 50 years. Slightly different words, but so this image, those of you who are there, is basically of a person. It's the same face, but it's got about 10 different forms, and it's a little freaked out looking, and there's this really kind of schizoid background behind it, which you might think doesn't go with the title, but you'll see that it might. The title to this says, "Life is profound only in its simplicity." That's what Rudy said. So this sentence says, "I am living through a psychic purification, karmic purging, ancestral release, emotional cleansing, mind bending, doing the best I can, totally debilitating time that I'm going to babble talk endlessly about it. So don't expect me to remain simple and full of clarity of intent right now. I'm going through a psychic purification, karmic purging, ancestral release, emotional cleansing, a mind-bending, doing the best I can, totally debilitating time that I'm going to babble talk endlessly about it. So don't expect me to remain simple and full of clarity and intent right now." It says, "Spiritual psychodrama is the height of self-absorption." To go along with Rudy's quote, "Life is profound only in its simplicity," if he heard that continuum, perpetual repeated line, or any one of those phrases, he would say, famously, "Stop talking like a horse's ass." I bring this discussion up because it's really amazing how much we want to project all the reasons why we simply can't be simple and live in an open heart. And all of those funny statements happen. We understand sadhana, one of the ways that it's discussed is the fire of transformation. The Sushumna, one of the terms for Sushumna is Shmashana, the cremation ground. We can read all types of scripture, say by probably even some Christian or Muslim or whatever, about that fire of transformation. What I encourage you to do is to be very quiet, to be very aware of when you're projecting that the reason that you're wrapped too tight for New Orleans is because God's trying to open you. There's a great line. I heard it in a Toshiro Mifune movie, and I'm sure it's a. I'm blanking on the great Japanese master. It'll come to me. Anyhow, he was a great samurai warrior. And there was a great line that he said, which applies here. It says, "The sword of the greatest master never leaves its scabbard." Now that means that's the baddest dude in town, walking through, of course, in the samurai days, every samurai was trying to take the head of the next samurai, etc., etc. But that mastery in ourself, that mastery of stillness, that mastery of surrender, that mastery of the simple joy of being alive, is the purpose of our spiritual work, and must therefore be the foundation of our spiritual work, and, if you will, the daily practice. And so then all the fire is the psychic purification, the ancestral release. All of that happens, but we don't need to make a big drama about it, because the drama is us relating the change that we're going through back to the part of us that doesn't really want to change and has an excuse about why. And the endless babble talk about it is our first, that's the email alert. You know, you get these emails where, and it's this, and this, and it says, if you want to opt out, say stop, right? Right. The email alert is when you hear yourself launching into some 42-minute sentence about why you're not open, about why your life is more difficult than the next person's, and why it's hard for you to change, etc. Just stop and take a breath and pull your energy back inside, because the point is all of the talk, all of the projection is in fact doing one thing, and that is us creating a release valve so that this energy that's internalizing in us and is trying to purify the chakras, is trying to purify the psychic body, that is trying to free us from our karmic bounds, is no longer able to do so because it is not contained within that shamashana. It's not contained within the central channel. All experience happens within the central channel. And so our sadhana is to perpetually internalize and internalize. And when it gets hot, be grateful. Get quiet. Allow the change that is projecting all of this drama on you, that we're projecting as all this drama. Allow it to change you by taking another breath, going inside, channeling that energy deeper in there. And so we must be our own police, right? We must be our own drama police, where it's us that is willing to say, wait a minute, I'm getting a little carried away. You know, as the Vajra turns, you know, there was an old show on TV called As the World Turns. Our mommies used to watch it. I think it's still on, you know. They kill off people and people are born and stuff, but it's the same drama. It's just drama. And it's amazing. I don't know if this is still going where housewives and mothers just sit around watching the soap operas all day. God, I hope not. Not on Maui. Right. Right. Don't turn your life into a soap opera. And it's so easy, and it's a gigantic distraction, and it is the height of self-absorption. Look what's happening to me. If you don't want it to happen to you, get off the boat, as opposed to never get off the boat. If you want to be spiritually changed, you must allow that fire to transform you, and it must transform all the dimensions of ourselves. The past, the future, and certainly the present. And what it must really do is one thing, and that is to burn through the simplest way is to burn through the ego. Life is profound only in its simplicity. And I'm suggesting to you that don't wait 50 years to come to that place in your spiritual work. Rudy told a story once. One of his first real teachers was, if you will, in the Indian tradition, was the Shankaracharya Puri. He studied with Paksabud, who was a man from Indonesia, and then Gurdjieff, some of you probably heard about, right? But his first Indian teacher was the Shankaracharya Puri, and he heard that this person was coming. This was like in the early 50s, and the Shankaracharya Puri arrives in New York City from somewhere on a train, and so he goes to meet him at the train station. And there's lots of people there and hubbub, and you know, he was elderly at the time. He was my age. He was in a wheelchair, and so the person is bringing him, you know, off the train on deck, and somehow Rudy recognized that in all the middle of the hubbub, the poor old man just needed to go to the bathroom. So he walks up, kind of bumps the porter, the guy who was with him, and takes the wheelchair and just runs into the bathroom, right? And the guy, the old man, this man just starts smiling at him and says, "Thank you." So that was the beginning of Rudy's relationship with this great master. There are four, if you will, Shankaracharyas in India. Puri is one whole major section. So this began his relationship, and it's just a funny story about that, but and I got to keep my time going here, so that's part of the story. But so he studies with this person, and for a number of time, and one night Rudy is on fire, just he's cooking with gas. It's just on fire, and he goes to talk to this person. And he describes going into his room as when he opened the door, the energy and this radiance of love was so strong that he had to take his hands and the jams of the door and pull himself in just to get through the door. And so he goes in and he's receiving all this energy, and he says to this person something like, I really want to be free. And I don't really care how hard it is. And this man smiles at him and says, "Don't worry, you'll be free." And Rudy describes he just kind of let out this big sigh. And at the end of the sigh, this man looks at him with a twinkle in his eyes and says, "But you're going to suffer like hell in order to get it." Make sure that your suffering is the internal combustion, the internal transformation of being transformed, of being changed, of being freed from the bounds of limitation, from the bounds of drama, the bounds of our karma, the bounds of our psychic. The fact that our psychic bodies looks like a pretzel instead of a pure channel. So be grateful for the fire, but don't put out the fire by, projecting it out and creating all this drama around it. Because so much of that is look at me, how spiritual I am. I'm going through a big change. Right? You're not. Right. If you're going through a big change, you don't need to tell anybody about it. First of all, they don't really want to fucking know. and it's evident. And mostly, It's the end of, after the change that they really want to know about. Don't get caught up in all the psychodrama. Recognize that it's the ego's flair for attention. And just take a breath, close your eyes, and say, life is profound only in its simplicity.